Show. I am your host, Michelle Shirley, CEO and Chief Heart Officer for Be Strong International. I am so glad that you tuned in with us today. We have an amazing guest from the Miami-Dade Beacon Council. But before we begin, I just want to let you know really quickly that we have Give Miami Dade coming up. It is November 16th. Please be sure to visit us on our website to learn more about how you can support us and so many other amazing nonprofits doing incredible things on that day. Again, it's November 16th. And as you know, Be Strong International is all about heart skills, all about healthy relationships. We want to move individuals and families from the brokenness, the negative traumas that they're experiencing to wholeness. It doesn't mean that they have to be perfect, but now you have the relationship tools to develop yourself in amazing ways so that you can have successful relationships with everyone in your life. So, with that said, I'm going to introduce our amazing guest today. I'm so honored to have him on our show, Mr. Rodrick Miller. He is the president and CEO of the Miami-Dade Beacon Council. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. First of all, I love your smile. It's
Thank
just
you.
so contagious. I saw you the other day at the Greater Miami Chamber event.
That's right.
And I was just like, I need to get to him, but everybody gets pulled away because that networking event is pretty, it was hot, but it was pretty intense. And
That's right.
everybody's seeing each other and they haven't seen in a while, but thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about the Miami-Dade Beacon Council. I think there's so many people. I think we were sharing even before the show of, we're living in Miami, we're in the hustle and bustle, but we're not aware of what your agency particularly does for residents, for local leaders, for business leaders. So share a little bit about how you even got there too.
Yes. So I've been the CEO of the Miami-Dade Beacon Council for about 8 months. So
Congrats,
relatively new.
congrats.
Very glad to be here. Glad to be with the Beacon Council. And glad to be here in Miami-Dade County. Really exciting time.
Yeah.
The Beacon Council's been around for about 37 years. And it came out of an initiative of the Greater Miami Chamber. We did, as well as the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. But we had a very simple mission. It's how do we bring jobs and investment to this market? So how do we create quality jobs so that people can work? And how do we ensure that there's, private investment driving that? And we've been doing that for the last 37 years. And simply put, it's about, growing the economy. This year was a banner year for Beacon, where we brought over 5,700 new jobs to the market.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's an exciting time.
Yeah.
And that's really the tip of the iceberg of what we do.
So tell me a little bit about the initiatives. I know you were telling me before that you rolling out a new strategic plan. Share with our viewers about that a little bit.
Yeah, so historically, the Beacon Council's really been focused on job growth. So when you ask an economic developer what we do, it's like, oh, last year I helped bring 5,000 new jobs or 6,000 new jobs with an average wage of X or Y. This year, for example, 5,700 new jobs with an average wage of almost $100,000 a year, the most in the history of Miami-Dade County, which is a great win. But when thinking about the economy more comprehensively, so we're big and we're strong, but does that really mean we're healthy? And so we've really shifted our focus to not just bringing in jobs, but figuring out how do we ensure over the long term that our economy is sustainable, so that that there's regular growth, measured growth year over year, and actions A plus B always equals C. So we can make things predictable. That means that companies can make money and people can make money. How do we ensure the economy is inclusive? So no matter what one looks like, what part of the region they live in, whether they're a woman, whether they're a veteran, whether they're an immigrant, they're able to fully participate in the economy, because every person that isn't participating in the economy represents a loss, right? Represents a loss of productivity and opportunity. And how do we ensure that it's competitive? That's on the face of it. Is it a good place to live? Is it a good place to do business? So we try to do that. And so some of the ways that we engage in that work is through our business retention and expansion efforts. We meet with several hundred companies every year here in Miami-Dade County to find out, are they growing or are they shrinking? And what's driving that growth or that shrinkage? We work with a lot of companies to figure out how to help them meet their workforce needs. The number one most important factor in helping companies grow is access to smart people that want to work, that have a good work ethic. So we've done workforce programs, and they're a whole lot. And then we support small businesses as well.
Wait, so pause right there. So you mean to tell me that someone can just pick up the phone, call the council, hey, I'm looking for, because right now I feel like the labor market is a very different time, right? People are aggressively looking for maybe more remote work. They're able to negotiate better, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want these sort of different benefits than before prior to COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can an employer call you? Like, what does that dynamic really look like?
Yeah, so oftentimes an employer will call us and say, "Hey, we've got 100 people we need to hire, or we've got 10, right? And we really want to understand where can we find that talent." Well, we've got deep relationships with partners groups such as OIC, the Career Source of South Florida. We've got great relationships with Miami-Dade College. So in many cases, employers will say, "This is the labor force that we're looking for," and we might say, "Hey, we think our partners over at the college or our partners over at Career Source might be able to help you find the type of person you need." In many cases, though, there will be a bigger issue. So, for example, Bean Automotive, which is actually down south, we work with Bean to actually develop an apprenticeship program for people to learn how to be mechanics, but specifically working on electric cars. So those are the kinds of things where employee says, "We've got a challenge with workforce." We say, "How do we help you fill that challenge?" And while we're not the workforce agency. I think a big piece of our value is that we're that connective tissue between the universities, the colleges, the career sources of the world, and the business community. So we try to bring everybody around the table to figure out, how do we ensure that our companies always have access to the talent that they need. And so it's as simple as picking up the phone, and we have industry experts on our team. So our business development team is comprised of experts in things such as healthcare and life sciences, experts in trade and logistics, experts in manufacturing, aviation, all those sorts of things. And so we do that, of course, for companies, and we do it free of charge.
I was just going to say that. I think my next question was, is this free? Because this sounds really amazing. And I know that there are businesses that come into the market and just can struggle. Being a new business coming to a new place, or even expanding their geographic footprint, right, can also be a challenge. So I think what you guys are offering is amazing. And the fact that it's free. So I'm hoping viewers are really understanding that they can call you. I think your phones are going to blow off the hook after this, right?
Thank you. Well, that's what we're here for. I mean, if we can help companies, so the likelihood, while what gets the news is all the big companies that we bring in, most of the companies that we help have 50 to 100 employees, right? Most of them are not companies that have hundreds and hundreds of employees. And so that doesn't make the news, but we know that we're much more likely to help that 80 to 90% of an economy's growth comes from companies that are already there. So we're keenly focused on making sure that companies that are here see us as their agency, as their organization.
Yes, and nonprofits too. We are a segment of the nonprofit sectors as well, right? Yeah.
Well, I often say that when we think about our work, we don't do it in a vat. And so while this morning we had our key ceremony,
I wanted you to talk about that. Yes.
So we do that annually, and that's where we recognize all the companies that landed in the last year. So we had about 51 companies that came to Miami-Dade County in the last year that we supported. And of course, we do this, and the mayor gives them a key to the city, and it's Mayor Levine Cava, and it's phenomenal. However, we're out there doing that work, but the reality of it is the reason why those companies are here is because we're part of an ecosystem. And that ecosystem is private companies, but many of our partners are nonprofit partners that provide services and support so that those companies can be successful here.
That's so great. I love that. Key to the city. That's incredible. Yeah. Wow. And that's 51. And you remember, you said something so amazing when we spoke. I said to you, oh, maybe all of those companies, are they in Brickell? And you said, no, that's the misconception, right?
Yeah. The majority of the companies that we support, there are some big deals in Brickell, but the majority of the companies that we support end up in other parts of Miami-Dade. Why? Well, because we're a big county, and there's a lot of value throughout the county. So while we've got a strong financial services and tech sector in Brickell, we've also got significant industrial corridors in places such as Medley. Some of the few places that actually have space for expansion are places like Miami Gardens, or if you look down south, Homestead. That's where our agricultural base. We brought the largest salmon farm in the world above ground here. This last year. So that's what we do.
That's incredible. I was born and raised in Miami Gardens, so I
that's
have
great.
a special affinity for Miami Gardens. Yeah, wow. That's incredible. So I want to ask you, what are you excited about now as far as latest developments happening in Miami?
So I will answer that in two ways. I will answer that first in the way and directionally where we're headed. I think what's really, really powerful here is that you've got a mix of public sector leaders that are really committed to the long-term economic growth, And so I think, we of course have a strong partnership with the county, but we're also trying to build that partnership with municipalities. So in our 37-year history, we've never had municipalities that are members of the Beacon Council.
Wow.
And that's one of the things that we're opening
but that
up.
seems like kind of like
a natural thing.
A natural
well,
fit,
I mean, so for many years, folks said, well, because of our partnership with the county, that we probably couldn't partner that way with the municipalities, but we absolutely can. You need them both, and so we're bringing municipalities more into the fold of our work, which I think is something that's really exciting. Because while at the end of the day, Beacon has this great big mission, the reality of it is we're kind of like a toothless tiger. We're huge, we've got this big brand, but our budget isn't that big. And the reality is we actually control nothing. We don't control land. We don't control incentives. What we have is the ability to bring people together. And so we really need to depend on the public sector to make that happen. So I'm excited directionally because I think we're seeing a level of collaboration and a recognition that the public sector can't do it alone, nor can the private sector do it alone. And so us as that bridge, we're able to drive the market in a different direction.
I love that. That's like new ways of thinking and really pulling things apart. And I think as a CEO coming into this role, I'm sure you've thought about, wait a minute, why aren't we doing this? Or we could do this better, right? And I want you to talk about your experience coming into this role, right? You've had some big shoes to fill, right? Talk a little bit about your transition into 8 months in.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So, I've been here about 8 months, but I've been doing this work for about 20 years. Most recently,
you look very young.
you know what they say. So at 20 years into this work, I led the recovery of Puerto Rico for the last 4 years following the storm. And so I was the CEO there. Prior to that, I was the CEO of the Detroit Economic Growth Corporations for the city of Detroit. So I led their economic recovery through the bankruptcy. And then prior to that, I was the CEO in New Orleans of their economic development agency following Hurricane Katrina. So a lot of experience doing this work, but each market is different. And one of the things that I think is in, so people said, does that mean that Miami is in the kind of shape that those markets were in? And what I would say is absolutely not. Miami is a growth market, and those markets were markets that had some challenges that were very apparent and very deep. The challenges that Miami has are different sorts of challenges that are the byproduct of being a vibrant and really growing economy. And so 8 months in, it's an interesting perspective. I have a 17-year-old son, and Christmas Day, he says, "Pops, I want to race with you." I said, why do you want to race with me? He said, I just feel like we haven't raced in a while. And I said, boy, you're looking at your pops, but your pops got some wheels up under here. We're about to do this thing. So we get ready to race. And one of our friends that's visiting, his wife, she says to me, Rod, you realize he may win today. I said, why would you say such a thing? I was offended. Well, of course we run, and he beats me. As a matter of fact, about a third through the race, I stopped running because I wasn't going to lose by that much. So I call my sister and I say, sis, we raced today and you're not going to believe who won. And she said, I hope he won. And I said, why would you say something like that? She goes, because you're not 25 and he's not 8.
Right.
And so I called my father and I said, I was racing with my son today. And he goes, what were you doing that for? He was like, that's a good way to get hurt at your age. And so I think so you asked, where are we at 8 months in? My perspective is Miami is very much like that 17-year-old kid. This is a market that when you look at economies, as far as economies go, there are very established markets such as New York and Chicago and LA that we're competing with that have been around for hundreds of years. South Florida is only about 130 years old, and there are many that would argue that the real growth that South Florida's experienced has really been in the last 70 or 80 years. So we're a very young market that's competing with very big markets, and we kind of have to now because of our affordability and other costs. We can no longer compete with second-tier markets, so we're competing with the big boys. And much like when a kid goes from competing, at high school to competing to college or professional sports,
it's a whole different ball
it's a whole different ball game. So we're trying to figure out how do we actually elevate to that level. But the good news is, just like a 17-year-old kid, we should beat them every single time. We won't right now because we haven't done a lot of the hard work, but I see our role at the Beacon Council as being that organization that defines what does working out to play at this level look like. What does eating right metaphorically? And that's thing like deeper collaborations, deeper integrations, more strategies about where we're going and how we get there. Everybody says we're going up, but what does that really mean?
Yeah.
And so that's Beacon Council's role. And so 8 months in, I find that this is a market that I believe is ready to do that kind of work.
Nice.
And that's hungry for it.
Yeah, and that goes back to a lot of conversations happening at the table. And as I said to you, I think even at different tables, I think it behooves you to go and listen to every sort of different market and even the different socioeconomic areas, right? Where I feel like this is where nonprofits come in. I got to speak, to say, I don't know if anyone's really talking to these folks and saying how when buildings are being built or when construction happens, how they're affected, right? How their businesses are affected, right? I think it behooves you to do that, and I'm almost sure that you're like, oh, I'm going to do it.
You know what? So the last 8 months, I've really spent probably 70 to 80% of my time out meeting with people, and that's not just the elite of Miami, but that's the grassroots and the grass tops, because at the end of the day, why are we doing what we're doing? This is ultimately about making sure that the residents of Miami-Dade County, all of the residents of Miami-Dade County, have an opportunity to participate in our economic strategy, which is why we recently changed our mission to include that we want to make our economy more sustainable, more competitive, and more inclusive. Because at the end of the day, if people don't have opportunities because of our work, we probably shouldn't be here. And it's elitist, and I would say wrong, to think that we can do this work without engaging the population.
I love that. I'm so excited about you and your role, and even just coming to be on the show again. This is amazing. So I want to ask you one last thing that I did think about, and it's seeing all that you will have to accomplish and your strategic plan. I think you said you're rolling it out soon.
That's correct. We're rolling out November 9th at our annual meeting. So
that's awesome.
So that'll be exciting.
Awesome. What keeps you up at night?
When I think about the work that we have ahead of us, it's so dynamic, it's so exciting. But I think the reality of it is that while we've got growth, we've got to really figure out what smart growth looks like. So when we look at questions of affordability, rising insurance premiums, transit, those are the sorts of things that really ultimately determine quality of life. And so while we're really an emerging city on the global stage, we've got to make the investments that allow us to continue to be that, whether that's investments in infrastructure, investments in institutions, and have that clarity of purpose. And so that's the thing that I think is our biggest challenge. But what's great about this is, with the growth that we've had and the success that we've had in a relatively short history, I'm certain we'll get it all done.
Yeah, I believe in you. I believe that you can. Yes,
Thank you.
Yes. All right. So we are going to switch gears a little bit. We have an amazing game that we've created called Social Yaks. And this game has been played in a few corporations as well, because we offer a training called Happy Healthy Cultures. And this game allows people to just dig a little deeper, get to know you a little bit better. And so we're going to play this game. The audience is going to listen to your answers. These are not typical interview questions, but I think it's great for viewers to get to know who you are as you visit communities and get to learn more about Miami as well. So we're going to start with the first level. Do you know how much, this is a polar bear, do you know how much a polar bear weighs?
No, I do not, but a lot, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, enough to break the ice.
That's great. I love it.
So that's our icebreaker level. So I want you to pick the first card here.
Okay.
And then read it aloud to the audience, and then just answer what best comes to mind.
What makes you feel loved the most? That's simple. I've got a 3-year-old little boy, and when he goes, "Daddy," and kind of holds me close, that's like the best feeling in the world.
Oh, the little fingers.
The little fingers and all of that stuff.
That's so cute. That's so cute. Oh, that's awesome. All right. We'll take one more from this level.
Great. What are you most proud of? You know what? That's a great question. I would love to say that I'm proud of something that I've done. I would say that I'm proud of I'm very happy about the career and the life that I've lived so far. As I come knocking on half a century in the next few years. I look back over my life, and I've been very fortunate to have great opportunities. I've been very blessed.
Yeah.
I got a great education. I have had a tremendous career doing like impactful work, but that's also, very much business focused, which is great. It's business focused and community focused, but it's not that I'm proud of that work. What I'm proud of is where I came from. And so when I think about what it's about, I think about my 93-year-old grandmother who I have a date with every Friday night.
Stop it.
And she tells me about how it was when she grew up and the opportunities that she didn't have. And, and I think about it, my grandmother's grandparents were probably slaves. That's the reality of how close we are to that. And so to be, come from that line and be able to have the opportunities, I'm proud of the lineage that I come from and the fact that so many people sacrifice to give me the opportunity to be here today.
You are so inspiring.
Thank you.
So amazing. 93.
Yes. Yes. And she's got great sense. So, when we talk, I have to look at the news before I talk to her because she doesn't have anything else to do with her time. So she's so she goes in deep on all of the global politics.
And you better know what's going on.
I better know what's going on.
That's so amazing.
Yeah,
that reminds me, I actually last night went to my dad's house. He's 75, bless his heart. And he's young to me. He's great.
That's great.
And he was like, "Oh, bring the grandkids," because I only stopped by to like, "Hey, I need you to sign some stuff." Yeah. And he's like, "No, bring the grandkids." And then we ended up coming over, and then he started cooking. I was just like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna be here for a little while."
That's great.
And it was great because I said, "You know what, Dad? Since we're here, just start sharing stories. Like, start telling them stories." And then he's talking about what a penny could buy. They're like,
wow.
"What?"
Yes.
And it was so amazing. So you just reminded me of how we need to be adamant about keeping
it's so important,
that spirit of like just the generational stories alive.
Yeah, it's recognizing the shoulders of those the shoulders that we're standing on, and the reality of that there are sacrifices that were made. When I was a little boy, my dad told me, he said, "A parent's wishes are pretty simple." He said, "And our goal is simple, that every generation is able to do a little better than the generation before."
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's beautiful. Oh, man, this is amazing. All right. So we're going to go deeper a little bit. This is Get Social level.
Okay.
So I want you to pick this card now. Let's see what it says.
When do you feel the most like yourself? Oh, that's a good question. I would say, I try to be a musician.
I heard, yes. So I saw your bio, the piano.
Yeah, the piano. So when I'm on the piano and I can just when I actually have time to get lost in the music, not like 5 or 10 minutes, but like an hour to just kind of go into a special place. That's really when I feel the most like myself.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So funny. So we went to a training. We conducted a training yesterday, the same thing, the culture training. And I walk into the auditorium and there's 2 pianos in the corner. And the first thing in my mind is like, man, I just want to go jump on that real quick, play a little bit. Cause I grew up playing the piano too.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so I guess I wanted to ask you today too, like when you see a piano and you're somewhere, do you get like the itchy fingers? Like you just,
I always want to do it. But
I
always want to do it, but it's my medicine. So it's one of those things that's so personal that sometimes you're like, oh, there's so many people around. I'm not going to do that right now. But you always get the,
you always get like the little itchy finger. And I had it for a minute where I was just like, I just want to go over there and do it. But because we were at this facility and I didn't know who was around, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to wake people up. Like it was
exactly.
I was just like, and then I forgot. So I saw your bio and I was just like, oh, you played the piano too. So cool. How long did you play for?
I've been playing since I was a young child, since I was like 6 or 7 years old. Wow. So I started off playing in the church. My dad was a pastor. And then later in high school, I got into band and really got into music more. And then I was a voice minor in college.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yes,
I feel like every time I talk, we're just like unpacking all the amazing things you've done in life.
That's great.
All right, awesome. So we're going to go ahead and pick one more of that.
Great. What would you say to your younger self? Chill out. Chill out. It's not that serious. It's going to be all right.
That is so funny because I was just on a podcast and they asked me that question and I was like, relax. Just relax, you know?
I was this way at 12. So my people were like, to my parents, what are y'all doing to him? They were like, he came out like that. He's always been just very serious. And I was like, I had goals and I wanted to do it. Chill out. It's going to be all right.
Man, yeah, it's so funny. It's like, it's the fact that they said he came out like that. So funny.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I
Great.
think we're wired for
Thank you.
greatness, you know?
Oh, thank
And
you.
I think that is funny though. I think today we realize that time is going by so fast.
Yeah.
We really need to relax and enjoy each moment and each season that we're in, you know?
Yeah. No, I like it was like the race with my kid, and it was
Yeah.
like, you know what? Oh, he's actually a young man, and I'm actually not a young man
And I
anymore.
need to stop doing this.
I need to stop doing this. But I was a young man yesterday. That's how quickly time goes by.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. So good. So good. All right. So we're gonna dig deeper now.
Okay.
These questions are a little bit more into your business.
Okay, great.
Let's see. Okay, so pick that one.
Dig deeper. Here we go. What was the last disappointment you experienced? You know, when I moved to Miami, I was really excited. So Miami was great. And it wasn't Miami. It was that 15 pounds I gained my first 2 or 3 months here.
Stop it.
And it was one day I stepped on the scale and it said 2 something or another. And I said, I can't believe this. So that was a big disappointment. So now I'm working on the real Miami body. So I'm on the diet now. But that was a big disappointment.
Really? Because you just started going out to all these different restaurants and just eating.
You know, so I came in from Puerto Rico, so I'm used to eating dinner late at night. You know, which is Miami. You all believe in these 9 p.m. dinners.
Nothing closes. Yeah, nothing's closed. Yeah.
But normally in Latin America, when you're eating that late, it's really a light meal. It's just kind of like a little this, that. No, but I went out in Miami, it's like, oh, we're going to have a steak and a full burger, a full meal at 9 o'clock at night. And so it was a lot of that got to me really quickly.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. Here's another one.
Great.
One more of that one.
What is your happiest memory of a loved one? So my parents were high school sweethearts. My dad married my dad and my mother started dating when she was in 9th grade and he was in 11th, and they were together until she passed away at 56 years old from breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
But my happiest memory, my mom, when she had me, I was 19 years old. They were a young couple. And my mother and we would go in the backyard and roll down the hill together. And my dad would joke that that we grew up together. So my mother and I were incredibly close. So when I just think about my mother and the life that she lived, there are lots of memories. But that one's probably from 2 or 3 years old, just going in the backyard and rolling down the hill with my mom.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so incredible. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful memory. Wow. Thank you for sharing. All right. So the last level here is called Use Wisdom. And this is where you will read the card, but I will answer it.
Oh, great.
Typically, that's how it goes.
If you had to give me a very meaningful gift, what would you give me?
Based on everything that I heard you say, I would probably give you some more time with your mom.
Oh, that would be the most meaningful gift. Absolutely.
Yeah, give you some time with your mom. I could just see y'all rolling down like, you want to try this again? Kind of like what you did with your son.
Exactly.
That's where that comes from. These little games you guys play, right?
That's
wow,
right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's incredible. So that ends our Social Yaks segment. Hopefully many of the viewers get to know more about Mr. Rodrick Miller, again, CEO and president of the Beacon Council. I want you to share any last minute words to any business owners, local leaders about Miami-Dade Beacon Council, anything you want to, any activities coming up or events that you think they should know about. Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Your time.
So the Miami-Dade Beacon Council, we are an organization, again, that's been around 37 years, and we're strongly committed to growing this economy, but the reality is that we can't do it by ourselves. So while we've got this mandate, we invite all of the business leaders out there to consider becoming a part of the Beacon Council, because we're one of those organizations where if you join us, we will invite you to roll up your sleeves and help us work to build a better Miami-Dade. If you've got issues or concerns related or opportunities related to growth, whether it's partners, whether it's workforce development, whether it's navigating permitting, we're here to be your partner in your growth in Miami-Dade. So feel free to reach out to our organization, and feel free to check out our website, www.beaconcouncil.com. Lastly, our annual meeting is happening on November 9th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. and all are invited. You can find out more information about that on our website as well. And we'll be rolling out our strategic plan, which is a big, bold vision for the future. And we know we can get there, but we can only get there if we work together. So we invite you to join us on that journey. Thank you.
That's amazing. So, with that said, that concludes our segment for today. Remember, it's never too late to start over again. Every day you can make a difference in someone's life, and every day you can make a choice to start new beginnings and have a great relationship with a loved one.